So we proceed with our next example. The game I would like to show you is one of the most memorable games in my career. It is the last game of my match against Topalov in Tripoli 2004, the game which made me qualify for the final of the World Championship, and basically was the game which also proved that I am ready to play on the same level like the best of the world, and I'm also ready to prove my rights in the sharp tactical battle. And this being our theme at the moment, let us turn our attention to the chessboard. So let us bear in mind this is game 6. Topalov is black and he desperately needs to win to stay in the match, and this is one of the reasons why the sharp, very unbalanced position arose. And if we take a look at this, what we see that white has king on f1, which is slightly unorthodox, and we see that in future there could be some danger coming along the f file, along this diagonal, and maybe along the c file. But on the other hand, it is in fact black's king who suffers much more at the moment, because basically his pawn structure is going to be shattered after h takes g6, and all white pieces will be then breaking through. And in this very unbalanced position, Topalov plays f5, basically trying to fight for the initiative at any cost. After f5, the pawn on g6 basically doesn't have any defenders anymore, and if things go wrong, there would be nobody left to defend the king on g8. But if I go about this in a normal way, like e takes f6, knight takes f6, hitting the queen on g4, bishop takes f6, and the rook takes f6, who knows, maybe I will be the first one to suffer due to the weakness of the square f2. And I thought that after f5, what I should do is that I should fight for initiative at any cost, because of the character of the position, because of the weakness of both kings. I thought that initiative weighs much more in this position than any other considerations, and thus was the move bishop f5 born. And here I thought black has little choice. I thought he should take on f5, and then I thought I win by force. I go h takes g6, and then rook g5. I go g takes h7, king f7, some rook f3 check, and then basically just mating lone king with all my pieces. But of course, Topalov was not happy about such development, and he had prepared a great tactical blow of his own. Knight goes to f4. And in this position, this being a rapid game and moves being pretty high, I did not see the continuation which could have finished the game basically at once. What I saw was that this knight on f4 and bishop created a pretty unpleasant threat, bishop g2, hitting my king and the rook on h3, and then I was practically forced to play rook g3. And in fact, a much stronger ways were available. I could just ignore black's threat with h takes g6, and after bishop takes g2, sacrifice my queen, knight g2, and play knight d5, and thus attacking with all my might. I'm threatening knight e7, rook h7, also the queen is hanging, and after, let's say, queen d8, I can even go rook takes h7, again threatening knight e7 and threatening e6, followed by mate. And now if he goes, bishop goes somewhere to c5, I take bishop d7, threatening bishop e6, and in short, black cannot protect. And in fact, this queen sacrifice, this h takes g6, has an interesting story to it, and I will take this occasion to tell you the story. After the World Championship, when I returned to Tashkent, we were celebrating with thousands of people. Basically, the whole city was there. And there was one amateur who was very old. And he asked me, you know, boy, why didn't you play h takes g6 after knight f4? I said, what? h takes g6 after knight f4? He said, in your game against Topalov. We were watching it live, he said. And I was just wondering, why didn't you take h takes g6 and then sacrifice your queen and win attacking with all your pieces? I thought, no, come on, this cannot be true. This guy is just telling me, who just became the world champion, how to play chess. And then, you know, chess players have a good memory. I remember the incident, came home, switched on Fritz, and I was amazed to discover that he was completely right. I mean, these people, they were watching the game live, and they were so intensely in it that they saw, in fact, more than I did, and maybe more than we both did with Topalov. So, and I unfortunately did not see this would be, in fact, a glorious finish to my match against Topalov, and I played rook g3, basically defending the pawn on g2 and just putting my rook on the g file where it is well placed, because I also thought that here nothing much can happen to me anyway. He goes rook f5. Now it is interesting to see how Topalov fights for the initiative, already despising any material losses, because he has to win and the position is already somehow on the other side of good and evil. And after h takes g6, also queen f5 was possible, but as I said, I was also trying to get to black's king. After h takes g6, another surprise awaited me, h5. He tries everything to keep the position closed on the king side, and after queen f5, rook f8, I was suddenly surprised at how difficult it became. Now, I am exchange up. I have also some pawns to boast of, but basically black's king on g8 is now as safe as never before. White king on f1 is already pretty vulnerable. The rook is putting pressure along the f file. The bishop could come to a6, and also there is pressure along this diagonal. There are possibilities of bishop h4 and h4, and here basically I had to be very, very careful, and I went queen c2, bishop a6 check, king e1. In fact, king g1 would be a blunder because of knight e2 check. Black uses the fact that queen on c2 is hanging. And after king e1, h4, we see it is no longer so easy at all. Now, if the rook goes, then basically we should bear in mind that there are two very important squares that rook controls. There is the square g2 and the square d3. And in order, somehow trying desperately to fight for the control of the game, I found the move g7. In sharp positions, even when you want some material, it is horribly important to try to fight for initiative, even returning some of your material, because if you switch to passive defense, usually your position, as Nimzowitsch would put it, unsettled by your attack, is not ready to defend anymore. And that is why it is important to try to go forward nevertheless. So after g7, attacking the rook, it is important that white uses some neat tactics to, in fact, fight against rook on the f file. After rook f7, white has a simple but a very nice possibility of finishing the game with queen h7 check. And basically then the new queen would decide the battle. And Topalov, that's why he goes to c8. He finds another dangerous file and basically asks the same question: where will you go with your rook to protect both g2 and d3? Well, I was not going with my rook anywhere. As I said, I realized the importance of fighting for initiative and played queen e4. So basically I want to give my rook, but to get at his king nevertheless. And now I was pretty confident that the game was in my hands. Well, there was still some adventures to come. H takes g3, queen takes f4. And now, if black just greedily grabs on f2, then I would take with my king and use the h-file. And then black would be unable to find a defense. And Topalov already objectively lost in this position. He continues to look already for merely practical chances, but he does it with great skill. Queen c6, queen takes g3, and queen h6. See, white's king is still pretty uncomfortable on e1. There are possibilities of bishop h4 or queen h1. And I was trying to be very careful here, and also trying to concentrate, because okay, it was the last game of the match, and the concentration was needed. We were both tired and nervous, and with almost trembling hands, I played following moves: queen h3, queen g6, queen d7, and after rook c3, queen d5 check. In fact, bishop c3 would be a mistake because of queen e4, followed by very serious attack. And after queen d5 check, king g7, bishop c3. Now I thought finally the matter is done. After all, white is exchange up, 3 pawns up, and in fact black's king is in trouble. And I basically here did a horrible mistake. I allowed myself to relax a bit, and I almost paid a horrible price for this. After queen c2, queen d2, queen h7, e6 check, king g8. Basically, you see that somehow if white is at all careful, nothing can happen to him anymore. Queen e3, I am threatening mate, or mating attack basically, after queen g3 and queen b8. Because queen h1 check, king d2, queen h4. And here, you know, the match situation played a horrible trick on me. And also the fact that I thought I was completely winning, and the undue relaxation in the very important moment. Here, for instance, the move rook h1, just the last tactical trick in this game, which was very rich in detail, would already finish the game. Because if queen goes, then I mate on h8, and if queen takes on h1, and queen g3 basically wins, and then queen g7 and queen g8, queen f7 mate. And basically you would say, you saw so much in this game, why couldn't you just see one more move? It is so simple. You've seen more difficult things than that. Well, you see, the draw was enough for me, because I won the 5th game. And then I thought, okay, I just exchange queens, and whatever happens, I can never lose anymore. And I went queen g3 check. I almost fell out of my chair when the reply was bishop g5 check. I missed this completely. I thought just queen g3 automatically exchanges queens, and then first somehow the world became black in my eyes, and I saw king c2, queen e4, king b2, queen e2, and bishop d3 with a disaster. Then I saw f4, queen takes g3, and it was just basically my good luck. And after king d1, no mate was to be found for black. So queen h1, king c2 now, and queen h7, king b2 is simply not sufficient anymore. And he played queen h5, I played f3, queen g6, and now queen d8, and now it was finally over. And I hope you will be able to learn from this game not only all the tactical nuances, which were great in number in this game, but also, above all, most importantly, that the game is never over until it's over. You must have heard it many times. I had heard it before this game million times, and yet it can happen that in a very important moment, having a great position, you think the matter is done, and exactly then something wrong happens. And it was my good luck in this game that it didn't have any disastrous consequences, but still, it is a very good lesson to learn, and I hope you got from this game as much as you could, and we proceed with another interesting practical example.